The wasteland was full of souls of the dead, and the huge skeletons were even advancing towards Cloud Mountain. Perhaps they could break through Cloud Mountain today, achieving an unprecedented feat for the demons. However, at this moment Lord Tongtian Hatred, who should be acting like a victor, did not look very good. Because his left arm was gone. Not only was his left arm gone, but his left ear and a small part of his head were also gone. It was as if someone had chopped him with a big knife. He tried to dodge but failed, so the knife cut diagonally and cut them all off. If it were a human, he would have died a long time ago. But after all, he was a dragon, a demon among demons. Now the smooth wounds on his body had been sealed by the golden blood. But his hair was messy and he looked a little embarrassed. But his voice was full of energy, so his life was not in danger. He was now standing on a high hill. Beside him was Zitherjune. There was also the body of the golden horn giant centipede, and thousands more demon corpses. The way these corpses died was also strange. There were no scars, but their bodies were shriveled. It was as if their souls and vitality were taken away by something, and their actions and expressions were still the same as when they were alive. It was obvious that they died suddenly and quickly without any chance to react. And the Zitherjune beside him didn't look very good either. Although her clothes were not messed up and there were no scars on her body. But her face was pale, her cheeks were sunken, and her lips turned from pink to white, as if she had just been seriously ill and hadn't recovered yet. I'm afraid it's all for the benefit of others. Zitherjune's voice became cold, almost biting her lips as she spoke. He stares at the two huge figures without moving his eyes for a moment. You told me before that you were possessed by Little Nine, so you came to Dongting from time to time, and then he took you to the Pitfall Mountain of the Evil King. Then you had a fierce battle with Evil King and flattened that mountain. Hatred interrupted him, took a step back, spread out his hands and sighed. Young Dragon Master, I have told you many times. I didn't expect things to turn out like this. Do you think I can hide my thoughts from you? Yes, I went to Evil King's Pitfall Mountain and injured him severely. Then I found that there were also skeletons under the mountain. Then I learned the way to control these skeletons from him. I swear again, young Dragon Master, big brother. He shook his head helplessly. What the Evil King said to me back then was indeed true. You have to nourish its soul as a sacrifice first. After sacrificing tens of thousands of souls, it will come back to life and find trouble with the cultivators of Xianmen. When those souls are exhausted, it will stop. I swear he did say that to me. Big brother, weren't you there when we were experimenting with this before? Chapter 533. Zitherjune, who had always been gentle and calm, now showed such an expression on her face and used such a tone. This made Hatred, who was also a profound realm great demon, feel slightly alarmed. This meant that the losses and setbacks in this battle had exceeded the young Dragon Master's expectations. If she was just angry, it would not be a big deal. But as the saying goes, lose at the swinging corner, gain at the mulberry elm. Who could guarantee that he would not want to take back what he had not gained from the battlefield? After all, in this world, no one liked to return empty-handed. Then, for example, right now, the two uncontrollable skeletons were continuously sucking away the souls on the plains. How did they use those things to refine their demon power? After realizing this, a dangerous thought appeared in Yazi's mind for a moment. Why don't we just swallow them? But then he realized that the person beside him was Zitherjune. If Zitherjune had the same thought, the one who would be swallowed would probably be him. Thus, when Zitherjune looked at him with such a cold gaze, Hatred did not have the mood to think about whether it was the Divine Lord or Mu Nanju who benefited. He wanted to run away from Zitherjune as soon as possible. So he said, "We need to think about this at length. If it really is the Divine Lord's plan, then we need to be more sincere and united. Now that the arrogant demon kings are gone, we can only stick together." His voice trailed off at this point. He hesitated for a while and could not continue. This was because Qin Jun had been glaring at him ever since she said those words. There was no emotion in her eyes or on her face. She stood motionless on the hill like a statue. This appearance made Yazi even more flustered, and even cold sweat oozed from his forehead. Finally, he could not help but take 2 steps back. "Young Dragon Master, you know that among all the brothers and sisters, I am the most loyal to you." But Zitherjune still did not speak. Only when Hatred gritted his teeth and took a deep breath as if he wanted to say something did he suddenly turn around. "What are you panicking for? I know your loyalty. Little Bai has told me everything about you. Yazid's eyes suddenly widened and his mouth opened wide. Bai, wonder. In the next moment he cried out involuntarily, Young Dragon Master, I didn't. Qin Jun waved his hand. If you had, you wouldn't be standing beside me today. That's not what I meant. He said that since you don't like women, maybe you like men. He smiled ambiguously and shook his head. That's what he thinks. Hatred stood rooted to the ground, unable to speak for a long time. After a dozen or so breaths, he said in a daze, that Wanderer Bai has always liked to play with me. He's monitoring me? The Zither monarch snorted noncommittally. He kicked away a shriveled corpse in front of him and said in a deep voice, So, you don't need to let your imagination run wild at this time. You've been possessed by Little Nine, so you know what you look like. If there's no restriction to trap you at night, you'll probably wander around. I don't care about such things. I've told you before. The reason I want to kill these cultivators and demons is not because I covet their remnant souls. What realm do I want to improve? But for the sake of the big picture, I want everyone to listen to me. No matter how strong you are, what can you do? Is the Golden Rock King strong enough? He's still been sealed for 1,000 years. After saying these words, his expression softened. He glanced at hatred from the corner of his eyes. Second brother, you're smart. But your cleverness is petty cleverness. Don't always look at yourself. Don't always think about how strong you want to become, what you want to refine and swallow. These are all small ways. The ways of an ordinary man. You have to look at the big picture. Do you understand? Hatred was silent for a while, then said, So? Young Dragon Master doesn't care whether you can get the dragon soul or not? Whether you can do too? The Zither monarch sighed and looked at him helplessly. Hatred immediately said, Yes. Young Dragon Master is right. I shouldn't always think about my own bravery, I should look at the big picture. But looking at the big picture, Young Dragon Master, we should leave. There's no point in staying here for too long. Who knows how terrifying those two things will be if they really grow flesh and blood. It wasn't that he, a profound realm demon, was timid. But when he thought about the appearance of the two skeletons not long ago, he still felt a lingering fear. They had used a secret method to draw the souls they had collected into the bodies of the two skeletons, bringing them back to life. This step had been tried before. Li Yunxin had guessed that after he burned the wild forest, the souls of many creatures in the forest disappeared because they were sucked away by the skeletons. His guess was correct. However, that was only one of the many experiments he had done. Therefore, the Zither monarch in hatred knew that if they fed tens of thousands of souls to the skeletons, they would come back to life. If one were to say that it was strong, perhaps its own strength wasn't that strong. It had just reached the Grand Realm and it couldn't use any divine abilities. Moreover, the tens of thousands of souls could only keep it alive for a quarter of an hour. When the time was up, it would become a dead thing again. But it had another unimaginable ability. Even the Zither monarch was shocked by this ability. Because of this, they believed that if they used this thing, they would definitely be able to kill all the demon kings and cultivators in one fell swoop. Once this thing came to life, it would be like the weak water surrounding the midland, forming some kind of restriction around it. Demons and cultivators would be shrouded by this restriction, and their divine abilities would be restricted. The range and strength of this restriction would change according to the number of souls fed to the skeletons. If they fed tens of thousands of souls, this thing could turn all cultivators below the true realm within a few miles into ordinary people, who couldn't use any divine abilities and could only rely on their physical bodies. The divine abilities of demons and cultivators above the true realm would also be greatly reduced. At that time, although the skeletons had just stepped into the Grand Realm, it would be too easy for them to kill them. They had experimented several times before and nothing had gone wrong. But they didn't expect that this time, a huge mess would occur. It was also given to the souls of the dead. They also used a secret spell from before. But these two skeletons wouldn't listen to them. It was like feeding an untamed beast. If you first gave it a piece of meat, it would obediently swallow it. But if there was a pile of fresh meat next to it and you gave it another piece, it probably wouldn't even look at it. Perhaps it was because the number of souls on this battlefield had reached an unimaginable level. When these two skeletons really came to life, they immediately went berserk. The secret spell couldn't suppress them at all, and the restriction on their bodies was unimaginably strong. The Zither monarch was at the peak of the profound realm. but even such a strong expert like him had almost lost all of his divine abilities under the restriction of these skeletons, and couldn't even dance in the air. These two terrifying things didn't have any intelligence and only wanted to destroy all living beings in their path. The Zither monarch and hatred had to use all of their strength to avoid being killed, but the demons that gathered back together had all lost their souls. Facing such things, it was just as hatred had said, once they completely regrown, how terrifying would they be? But the Zither monarch shook his head. We can't leave. He paused for a moment, then said in a low voice, you must know we were the ones who released these things. The evil king told you that these things are ancient demons with the power to destroy the world. In my opinion, although his words are exaggerated, they are not without reason. If we leave these two alone, they will regrow their flesh and possess even more terrifying power. If we escape now, where can we escape to in the future? Hatred was stunned. The Zither monarch's words were too righteous and magnanimous. It didn't sound like something a demon would say, but more like something a cultivator of the profound sect would say. The Zither monarch seemed to see through his doubts and said, you must know we originally wanted to rule the world. If the world is destroyed, it will be our loss, not someone else's. Hatred opened his mouth. He wanted to say something, but in the end he didn't. He really didn't know what to say. If he didn't know that this big brother of his was actually very shrewd and intelligent, he would have thought that he had gone crazy. From the sound of it, he already considered the world as his own and planned to manage it with all his heart. With just a few words, he would have to praise this young dragon master for his astonishing boldness and determination to become the ruler of the world. But now that he really had to do it, if he lost his life, how could he talk about ruling the world? But at this moment, how could he dare to speak carelessly? He had seen the Zither monarch's previous anger. If he really touched the bad luck, it would not end well for him. He could only sigh in his heart and said, I will listen to young dragon master's instructions. So what do we do now? I'm not doing anything. Wait for someone to show up. The Zither monarch said in a low voice. Little White's theory of earth qi and feng shui may be a bit far-fetched, but there is one thing that is accurate. Of these two skeletons, one is hidden in the Guanyuan cave of the Yi Kingdom, the other is hidden under the Xiankong mountain. That should also be a cave. This is definitely not a coincidence. In that case, someone must have placed this thing here in the past. And now, someone used the mouth of the evil king to make this thing move, resulting in the current situation. This means, there must be a way to control them. He paused here and cast his gaze into the distance. The two skeletons were getting closer and closer to Cloud Mountain. Previously, they walked on the wasteland with monotonous and mechanical steps like marionettes. But now, there was another kind of body language. They began to show subtle emotions like real living beings, as if their will and emotions were slowly recovering. They began to try to raise their heads and shake their arms. It was as if something in Cloud Mountain was attracting them, making them want to peel off Cloud Mountain and grab that thing. So let's take a look. If someone really used our hands to make this happen, then let's see what they want from Cloud Mountain. At this point his tone became more and more calm. But Yazi, who knew him, also knew that in this peaceful tone the coldness was getting heavier. This debt cannot be settled like this. Since they asked me to do something for them, I have to repay them 1,000 times over. Every debt has its debtor. If I don't see who that person is, how can I leave in peace? Chapter 534. At this point hatred had nothing else to say. Just as he was about to sigh and say something, he saw a beam of black light coming from the sky. His heart skipped a beat, but when he took a closer look, he heaved a sigh of relief. The black light was none other than their third sister, Evil Devil Chao Feng. The newcomer suddenly appeared. She was tall and slender, wearing a black robe and silver armor. Her dark golden hair was tied up in a bun. She looked like a cold and sharp beauty, totally different from Qinjun. She flew over from the sky and landed on the hill. She walked 2 steps and stopped. Without waiting for Yazi to speak, he pointed at the direction of the 2 skeletons and asked, "Did you two do this?" At this moment the Yazi's cultivation was greatly damaged and it was anxious in its heart, so its aura was slightly weaker. When he was hesitating about what to say, Qinjun said softly, "Third sister, why are you so angry?" He just stood with his hands clasped behind his back and looked at the skeletons in the distance without looking back. The evil devil ignored hatred. She took 2 more steps and stood beside Qinjun. She raised her eyebrows and stared at him. You gathered so many people just to do this? Release this thing? Do you know what it is? Qin Jun smiled indifferently. Of course However, he only managed to say 3 words before the evil lord pushed him hard on his shoulder. Who do you think you are? Of course you are. These are the skeletons of an ancient demon. Why didn't you tell me that you were going to do this? Why did you bring my second brother along? Every time she asked, she would push Qin Jun, without using any supernatural power. It was just like a quarrel between 2 brothers and sisters. Qin Jun's demonic power was greatly damaged. But even when her demonic power was not damaged, although she was Long's son and a demon, she was different from ordinary siblings. However, if this Jun, whose cultivation level was almost the same as his, really came to push and shove, and with his status, what else could he do? Of course he couldn't do anything. He also couldn't push her like a child fighting. Therefore, when the evil devil pushed him, he frowned. Third, before he could finish his sentence, he was pushed again. Don't you dare, he said angrily. The evil lord was even angrier than him. He raised his leg and kicked him again. Don't do anything. Don't do anything. The zither lady's lips had already turned pale. But now his face turned red again. You have something to say. In the end, he was still pushed, kicked, and interrupted. Finally, he could not bear it anymore and no longer stood in the wind with his hands behind his back. Leaping back 3 or 4 steps, he cursed, Senjin, are you shrew? If you touch me again, I'll be really annoyed. Hatred gritted his teeth and hurriedly hid to the side, not making a sound. The evil lord placed his hands on his waist and glared at the zither lord. How did you release it? Go and retrieve it. Qin Jun also stared at her with widened eyes, looking extremely annoyed. Accept? Collect my ass. I can't take it anymore. After it was released, it wouldn't listen to me anymore. Let's die together. When the evil lord heard this, he was stunned. His annoyed expression froze on his face. Soon it turned into a serious look of worry. He frowned and asked, Are you serious? Qin Jun glared at her and said nothing. At this moment, hatred heaved a sigh of relief. Third sister, we didn't expect this to happen. Here's what happened. He immediately recounted everything that had transpired. Qin Jun glared at him while he was telling the story, but he pretended not to see it. He was also afraid of those 2 things. Now that she saw how serious the evil lord was, the worry that she had suppressed in her heart rose again. When he finished, the evil lord looked at him and then at the zither lord with a gloomy face. So, only the 2 of you know about this matter and you hid it from us? Before I released them, didn't I tell my brothers and sisters that we were going to leave the battlefield? Hatred said in a low voice. Before the battle, I also mentioned that we were going to gather all of you here, he explained in a low voice. But it was just an explanation. For example, he said something like, before the battle. Actually, it was ambiguous at that time. Only after the incident, when he thought about it, did he feel that he did have such an impression. In the end, he said, Evil Lord, you also know about the primitive ancient demon? At this time, the evil lord slowly calmed down. She looked at the zither lord and said, Not only do I know about it, I know much more than you do. You don't even know the origin of this thing. You dare to come here after listening to the evil king's lies. When she said this, the zither lord frowned again as if she wanted to say something. So the evil lord snorted. Forget it, I won't waste my breath on you. Listen carefully, what is that thing? She didn't stop or pretend to be mysterious. Instead, she frowned and spoke clearly and quickly. The primitive ancient demon is the ancestor of the demons. Because it wanted to destroy the world but couldn't be killed completely, it was broken up and sealed in different places in Midland. In the past, even the gods were afraid of its power, but now you have awakened it. Think about how much trouble you have caused. She didn't say much, but there was a lot of information. Even though the zither lord was still angry because of her previous actions, she frowned and said, Who told you this? The evil lord looked at her and said, The Rock King. The zither lord raised her eyebrows and resumed her calm look. Oh, you're right. It should be him. But you knew this before, but you didn't say it. Why did you only say it now? Hearing his tone, the evil lord glared at him again and was about to hit him again. The zither lord hurriedly took a step back. We are hiding something from you. Aren't you hiding something from us too? Second brother, isn't that right? But hatred didn't dare to get involved in the fight between the 2 of them, so he just acted like a yes man. The evil lord raised his eyebrows again. Hiding something? You two created this devil star and triggered the earth chi. The formation on the ground was originally used to seal the Rock King. After this incident, his restrictive spell loosened a little, so he sent me this letter immediately. Unfortunately, I was too late. The Zither Lord snorted. Is what he said the truth? Why are you afraid of the gods? Have you ever seen one with your own eyes? The evil lord stared at him. Ha Chunyo, good. You don't even believe me. Good. After saying this, he turned to look at Yazi and said, Second brother, does he always tell you that a person's realm doesn't matter? You should set your sights on the world, be lofty, open, and strategically advantageous, right? Hatred was slightly stunned. He did say this before. And he really did say it just now. So he nodded. I also think it makes sense. What bullsh *t logic is that? You think he doesn't want to? The evil lord immediately snorted. Your big brother was born at the peak of the mystic realm. He is only one step away from the Grand Supreme level. But he hasn't made any progress in the past 1,000 years. You think he doesn't want to? He can't. That's why he said all those nonsense to you. The Zither Lord's face turned red and his robe billowed. He said sternly, Sanjiner, don't go too far. The evil lord didn't care about his anger at all. He only used one sentence to stun him. Many years ago you must have wanted to know how a demon could become a Grand Supreme like a human cultivator. But after a long and fruitless search, you finally gave up the idea, didn't you? Let me tell you today, I have a way. And it was the Rock King who told me this. You said you don't believe him, so do you want to listen to him? What? Qin Jun looked at her suspiciously, but she could not hide the look of surprise on her face despite her efforts to suppress it. Are you serious? I'm not like you two, I don't speak the truth. The evil lord looked at him in hatred angrily, like an elder sister looking at two disappointing younger brothers. If you want to listen, you have to settle the matter in front of you first. The Zither Lord hesitated for a while, but only for 2 breaths, and said in a low voice, There is a way, but it's very troublesome. The method of controlling the earth chi left by Little White can still be used. If we really use it, we can refine a lot of souls on the battlefield, at least we won't be sucked away by them again. That thing uses souls as flesh and blood. Now that there's no more flesh and blood to replenish them, they will probably become bones again in a few days. Hatred opened his mouth. It turned out that his big brother just now really planned to let this thing destroy Yunshan. He didn't know what to say for a moment. Should he say that the Zither Lord was determined and courageous, or should he say that for the sake of his own ideas, he was willing to put everything on the line? But tell me what you know first. I'll do it again. The Zither Lord said in a low voice, Maybe this thing is as scary as you said. But because it's scary, once it can't be controlled, people with higher realms than us will also take action. Before this, it was like the mantis stalking the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Since I've been tricked, I might as well beat them at their own game. Let's have a fight between 2 tigers. The ancient demons and the like have been revived. The Taishang masters have to come out to manage things. This world is theirs now, but it will eventually be ours. I'm not afraid of a broken world. The more broken it is, the easier it will be to rebuild it. So Hatred realized. It turned out that he didn't really understand a lot of what his big brother, the young dragon master, said in the past. The Zither Lord said that he was only smart and he was a little unconvinced. But after listening to what the young dragon master said, it turned out that the responsibility towards this world, he mentioned, was different from Hatred's understanding, different from anyone else's. This young dragon master really wanted the whole world. But he didn't necessarily want the people of this world. For a moment, even a demon like him felt a slight chill in his heart. The young dragon master was indeed the young dragon master. He looked at the Zither Lord and thought silently, if he wasn't this kind of person, how could he have the willpower to treat the world as his own exclusive property? But the Fiend Lord only sneered. You'd better take care of this matter first. If you want to hear it, I'll tell you first. After you hear it, you'll want to seal it even more. But like I said, only the 3 of us will know. We can't let it spread to other places. Otherwise, even if I don't look for trouble with you, you won't be able to hide from the Golden Rock King. Chapter 535. The evil lord had always been a straightforward person and she rarely tried to be mysterious. Her reminder was already a rare case of long-winded. She paused for a moment and let out a sigh. Then she continued, 50,000 years ago when Deva created the world, he created humans in his own image. But did you know that before Deva created humans, there were also rulers in this world? And these rulers were us, demons. But at that time we weren't called demons. The word demons was a derogatory term for us. It's funny that after such a long time we still call ourselves demons. But at that time, before humans appeared, we had a name. We were called species. The moment she opened her mouth, it was as if she was going to shock them to death. But Zither Master and Hatred were not ignorant people. They knew that something that could make the evil lord so serious must be something extraordinary. Therefore Zither Master only frowned slightly. Species? In the human world, Zither Master could be considered a knowledgeable person. She snorted. That's not a good name. It's more like a term for a low-level creature. If you ask me, I like to hear about demons now. Feces, what is it? Demigod. The evil lord spat out 2 words. Then she raised her hand and pointed in the direction of Cloud Mountain. That's God. Zither Master and Hatred subconsciously turned to look in that direction. At this time the 2 skeletons were already very far away. Although they were huge, they were insignificant compared to Cloud Mountain. The sky was getting darker and the last ray of light was about to disappear. 2 dark figures were about to disappear into the darkness. But at this moment, a faint, long and mournful howl came from the sky. It was as if some unknown beast had finally seen the light of day from underground and was howling. The sound echoed in the wilderness and reached the ears of the 3 demons. It was the skeletons that were howling. This meant that they had indeed grown flesh and blood. The 3 were silent for a while because of the sound. Then Zither Master said softly, "You call these things gods? He was once a god." When the Fiend Lord said this, Hatred coughed softly and said, I shall take my leave for now." Neither of the 2 dangerous great demons said anything, so Hatred immediately leaped down the hill, heading to some unknown place. They used to be gods. The Fiend Lord repeated. The demons and humanoids in the past were the descendants of gods. It was just that after that, these gods wanted to destroy the world, so they were defeated and sealed. Because of this, the human race died out. It wasn't until the celestial beings created humans that they slowly flourished. Which is what we are today, the demons. Qin Jun coughed lightly. Third sister, let me remind you of 2 things. At this point, who sealed those gods? Secondly, the demons we have now are of different species. Today, a black tiger gained intelligence and attained Tao, and tomorrow, a white fox will also become a monster. Are you saying that these 2 are of the same species? The evil lord asked calmly. Do you know about demonic seeds? Demons all have demonic seeds in their bodies. The demonic seeds are the marks left by the former gods. The demonic seeds determine whether those so-called animals can attain Tao. It's not because animals attain Tao that they give birth to demonic seeds. This is because after the former gods died, they turned their supernatural powers and cultivation into demonic seeds and scattered them between heaven and earth, creating the demons today. So, no matter what they were before they attained Tao, once they attained Tao they became humanoids and demons. Speaking of this, she raised her hand and pointed at the almost invisible skeleton. Didn't you see? All the demons' souls are embedded in their bodies. All the souls of humans are scattered into spiritual energy. That's because the demon's soul has a demon seed. It's originally a part of the ancient demon's body or our former god's body. As for who defeated and sealed them, Peng Jun didn't tell me. He didn't know either. What the evil lord had just said was too unimaginable. Therefore Qin Jun didn't pay much attention to it at first. He even tried to point out the mistakes and refute her. But he did see what the skeleton looked like. The demon's soul was entangled by the silk and turned into a red eyeball. The scene remained in his mind, but he really didn't know why. Therefore at this moment he finally thought about it seriously and said, "Demonic seeds. Golden Rock must have told you about them. So you want to tell me, if what you said is true, that I released them and brought them to life. Then they will want to come back to life. Since the so-called demonic seeds in the demons used to be part of them, they will want to devour all the demons in the world. Even the demonic seeds you mentioned, that still exist in the world and haven't been obtained by animals. In other words, once they do it, all demons will cease to exist, and there will no longer be any beasts that can become demons." He said all this in one breath before looking up at the evil lord. "Is that so?" The evil lord sighed. You are indeed smart at this time. But why did you do such an unwise thing? But these skeletons are sealed in the crypts. Qin Jun's expression became serious. And you and I both know that these crypts are used to form a formation to seal the Golden Rock King. This means that these things are not well hidden. They can be found almost easily. Look, I have found 2 of them. If they are really so terrible, why did the art saint say that she used the skeletons to form a formation or seal the skeletons in this formation? Why did she want us to pay attention to these things? This is the formation used to seal the Golden Rock King. Everyone will want to find out the truth. Did your Lord Ping tell you all these? Chao Feng's face flashed with a trace of imperceptible anger. But it disappeared in a flash. I'm afraid no one in the world can explain these things clearly. What you and I need to do is to choose some letters from them. As for the rest, we can think about it later. Qin Jun suddenly said, Fine. Then let's not dwell on these details. Third sister. Maybe I don't trust you about other things, but I know you never lie. Then I'll believe what you said about the demonic seed and God. Alright, now tell me, how do I enter the Taishang realm? It's just a possibility. The Fiend Lord looked at her. As for whether you want to try, you have to think about it carefully. You should know how the Rock King entered the Taishang realm. He obtained the Tao from the beginning. After that, he went to the Blessed Enclave to cultivate, and by chance he obtained the cultivation methods of Dao Tong and Kenzo. He devoted himself to cultivation and entered the Taishang realm, becoming the most powerful demon in the world. I know all this. Qin Jun interrupted her. He seemed a little impatient. It's useless. If you want me to dispel my cultivation and cultivate the Tao again, why don't you call me? What I want to say is that these are just what the Rock King wants the world to know. The Fiend Lord smiled. Only then can he hide the real secret. Qin Jun was stunned. You mean, demons can't enter the Taishang realm even if they cultivate the Tao for 100,000 years, the Fiend Lord said seriously. Remember, we are the demonic seed and we have the demonic seed in our bodies. The Tao is something that the immortals tailor-made for humans. If demons cultivate the Tao, they will only go further and further down the wrong path. Moreover, in order to keep the human cultivators in check and prevent them from having rebellious thoughts, the so-called Taishang realm that the immortals gave them is not the real Taishang realm. You should have thought of this. Once the human cultivators cultivate to a high realm, they will become like the walking dead. This is because the immortals only taught them to cultivate the body but not the mind. The Fiend Lord shook his head. The Taishang realm of the demons is the real Taishang realm. You and I are both in the mystic realm now. You should know that when we use our supernatural powers, we are no longer using spells and techniques, but controlling the laws of heaven and earth. But the real Taishang realm is not limited to controlling. This time Qin Jun did not say a single word. He listened to every single word that the evil lord said. Then he tried to figure out if what she said was true or not. But it was obviously in vain. Every word that the Fiend Lord said was strange to him. How did his third sister know the Golden Rock King know so much? So, the Fiend Lord looked at Qin Jun's expression. The reason why Lord Rock could enter the Taishang realm was also by chance. Because, like you, he accidentally found the remains of an ancient demon. In other words, the remains of the former god that I mentioned. Because of another coincidence, he discovered that a piece of the skeleton had shattered. A very, very small piece, as fine as a speck of dust. But even that small piece wanted to swallow him. But you should know that in the end he merged with the Golden Rock King. So he finally entered the Taishang realm. Qin Jun opened her mouth and suddenly shouted, "That's it. As I said, it's possible." The Fiend Lord took 2 steps to stand beside Gao Gang and looked at the distant cloud mountain. The 2 of them had only talked for half an hour. The 2 skeletons had not reached the cloud mountain yet, but their long and mournful roars could still be heard. Qin Jun was right. Was this the so-called god? But it did not look like a god at all. It looked more like an evil ghost from the netherworld purgatory. She glanced at it and turned back to Qin Jun. Lord Rock also thought it was simple. So he thought that if there were more than 10 Taishang experts among the demons, they would no longer need to be bullied by the Xianmen. So he wanted to use the same method to create another Taishang. But you should know the result when you see the current situation. First of all, it was extremely difficult to get the fragments from the skeleton. That thing was almost indestructible. It took him decades of effort to finally reach that point. Now try it on other fiendish demons. But at this time, no matter how small it was, even if it was smaller than when he was at that time, it was still a failure. All the demons who tried it were devoured and not a single one succeeded. But when Lord Rock fused with the fragments, his cultivation was already at the peak of the profound realm. Since then there were very few profound realm experts, not to mention the peak. So there might be another possibility. Those people's cultivation levels were not high enough. If they were at the peak of the profound realm, they might have succeeded. Speaking up to this point, she sighed. You already know what happened. I'm sleepy. You also know what to do. I'm leaving first. The topic came to an abrupt end. Qin Jun was stunned for a while before saying, What? I've said everything I need to say. I'm sleepy. The evil lord yawned. Do you want me to sleep in the wilderness? What do you mean by that? Qin Jun stared at her. You said that if they were at the peak of the profound realm they might succeed, and then what? The evil lord yawned again. Her temperament was originally cold. But at this time she suddenly yawned and suddenly appeared to be lovable and lazy. Besides, she wasn't pretending to be sleepy. She was overwhelmed with sleepiness. In just a short while her eyes turned red as if she had just cried. Then, what then? She said vaguely, her body swaying like a willow tree in the spring wind. There are only a few people at the peak of the profound realm in this world. I don't want to be the master of the world, so I don't want to risk my life. No one else knows about this, so naturally there's no way to try. Speaking up to this point, she frowned. It's all your fault. So many words. I have to. She did not finish her sentence. Her body suddenly tilted and fell backward. But at the same time, somewhere behind her or somewhere in the void, a huge pair of dark golden wings suddenly spread open, supporting and wrapping her body up. Then the wings quickly closed and turned into an egg with feather patterns on its surface, standing quietly in the same place. Among the 9 sons of the dragons, except for Dragon 9 and Dragon 8, they all slept for a period of time every day. The higher the cultivation level, the longer the period. But when there was an emergency they could naturally use some method to delay it, but the price was not cheap. But now, on such a battlefield, the evil lord was sleeping as usual, as if he did not care about the great danger that might be waiting for an opportunity. The Zither master looked at the egg and walked around it. Then he stopped and clicked his tongue. Sigh. It's a doting one. So that's how it is. Then he bent down and carefully reached out his hand to lightly flick the egg. There was a crisp sound. Suddenly, an unparalleled aura and power exploded from the spot where he flicked the egg. He was so shocked that he gasped and took 3 steps back, almost tripping over the dried corpse on the ground. But since he had retreated, the aura was immediately restrained. Only then did he let out a long sigh. So fierce. But soon he frowned again. Grand Supreme. His third sister said that the Grand Supreme of the Xianmen was not the real Grand Supreme, but the Grand Supreme of the demons. He really wanted to step into this realm. However, he did not know if what he had heard was a deliberate trap, an overt plot. He also did not know what kind of realm the evil lord was talking about was the real power of the Grand Supreme. Because at least in their generation, and this referred to as long as 2,000 years, no one had seen the real Grand Supreme powerhouse in action. This real also included the Grand Supreme Sage of the Xianmen. Today's world seemed to be a world where the strong were on the decline. You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.